Well, this is a video about replacing a TE20 PTO seal. And the PTO seal is just at the back of the tractor under this cap. There's often a cap there. Quite often that cap is screwed in tight because the seal's leaking. Some of these housings get worn around this edge. As the early PTO couplers, they would go on there, and then there should be a little hole here and a pin would go through them. But they'd wobble around and they'd wear the back of this housing. So, like ours here, when we screw that cap right in, it doesn't want to go right in. There's a gap there because it bottoms out first. So, what we'll do, we'll tidy up this edge here. We'll pop this in the lathe and take a few threads off just to make that go like that. So, with the job, you have to drop the oil out of the tractor first. You're going to need an 11/16 socket or a ring spanner. Don't use an open ender. And the job is to undo these 4 screws here. After you've dropped the oil out, you'll see the bucket here. There's a bung straight under the diff there to drop the oil out. Once more, an 11/16 spanner fits that. So we'll get you down a bit closer and we'll start undoing things. Right, well, just to save a bit of time on the video, I've undone the screws. Now, there's a hole through the PTO shaft, so you can see if it will loosen like that. Looks like it's tightening the housing a little bit, this one. There we go. And there you are. It's that easy to get it out. It comes way out from inside the hydraulic pump. Well, let's have a talk about this PTO shaft. Now, the PTO shaft coming out the back of a TE20 tractor is 1 1/8" across here, across the splines, 6 spline. And to hold an implement on, you put the yoke on and you dropped a pin through, and the pin locked it in and that held it from falling off. Now later on all the tractors decided to standardise the PTO shaft, so they went to 1 3/8" 6 spline, and you'll notice they don't fit. So there is an adapter out where you can adapt the 1 1/8" 6 spline up to the 1 3/8" 6 spline. You'll also notice that the new one, if I can get a picture in there somehow, it's press button lock, and down in the bottom there, I'll see if I can, yeah, you can just see it moving, I think. I'll give you a white background. And that's how they locked on instead of the pin. So the later shafts actually have a groove in here, and to put it on, you press the button, slide it on and let it release again. But these old ones weren't like that. From aftermarket suppliers, there is a shaft available that is the same TE20 shaft, except for they now come with an 1 3/8" 6 spline. And we haven't gone with that on this job. This is off our 1948 one, 1948 TE20, and we're doing it up for show and restoration and to take around to machinery shows and things and just have a bit of fun with it, which is what we like to do. So we'll just go through fitting the seal and the bearing and all. Now, at the back end here, you have an oil seal. It's quite a thick oil seal. I think it's 62mm OD from memory. Then you stay there. Well, it doesn't want to stay there, does it? There. So behind the seal is a bearing, and the bearing back in the olden days was an open ball bearing, so it was open on both sides. Another option for this bearing, if you choose to, my bench must be just on that bit of an angle, if you choose to, is buy a sealed bearing and leave the back seal in. Take the front seal out, they just hook out with an O-ring. So you have an option of doing that. The bearing number from Sparex is S18056. So the bearing's available. And look, if your tractor's like mine, a 1948 model or right up to 55 model, high chance that that bearing's never been changed. So if you've got a sloppy bearing here and you put a new seal in, the new seal's going to work for a while, but it will end up slopping out and chopping out. Another thing I replaced too is there's a Circlip. There's a big Circlip on the outside that holds the bearing in. It holds him in there. And a new gasket. The Sparex number for the gasket is S61322. So to get this housing off, all I really do is, you can see a little Circlip down in there. It's a snap ring. This one has the eyes in it. This is a later type one. This is the one that you pop out with a screwdriver. So we'll go and get organised. We'll show you how we get this off. It's very easy. You don't need a press. You don't need any major gear. Okay, we've got it just set in the vise just so we have a spare hand to get the Circlip out. Now with the standard type Circlip, it has a little hook on it. Oh, not a hook, just a little flat. So the idea is that you get a big screwdriver or a lever of some type and you try and pick up under that edge. Right, we've just hooked under it. You can see it coming out. They're a bugger of a thing to get out sometimes. And so that's the old one. See that sometimes they get a bit twisted pulling them out. So that's why we choose to put a new one in. And with the new one, you can just hop down in with a set of snap ring pliers or Circlip pliers and pop them in and away you go. So that's why we choose to do that. Now we've undone that, so that releases the bearing, so the shaft will come up this way. So I'll show you how we do that. You don't need anything too drastic, just a nice block of wood. Usually I have a block of wood and I have it down on the ground as I have a hard surface, but for the sake of filming I'm just going to try and do it on the bench and hopefully that's supported enough. So look, all I do is get the shaft, pick him up and go and you're done. See the lines in here, and that's on a taper. You can see where it's been scoured out with something, and I'm finding a lot of these old tractors have been scoured out on that edge. So what we're going to do is when we get the seal out, we're going to put that in the lathe. We're not going to shorten it much, we're just going to square that front edge off. And by squaring the front edge off, that'll give us a nice surface to put the cap back on. Right, we've got a socket in there to knock that out. And that's level now. So what I do is I open the vise up. It's not very tight, the seal. And with another blow, or 5, we should be able to get the seal out. So there's your old seal. Well, you notice I've bead blasted the housing up just to get rid of any paint and give definition to the part numbers for when we paint it ourselves. And I've also machined, if I can get where you can see it, this surface flat so the cup can seal properly on it. And there was a couple of burrs around here where sometime in its life it had got a bit of a hiding for one reason or another, so I've polished them up too. So what we do now is put it in the vise, just firm. Doesn't have to be tight, just so it doesn't bounce around on you a bit. And I found a socket that I use to put them in. It's inch and 13/16 AF. Now, the seal that we're putting in looks like this. It's a bare case seal, and the lip is on the inside. So there's a little spring in behind there. The spring goes to the oil. This little dirt lip here, there's a double lip there. That goes to the outside. Now, the original seal was a leather one. We still can get them sometimes, but they're very hard on everything, so we've just gone with modern technology. They had a felt seal here, just to keep the rubbish out. So the more modern seal has a dirt excluding lip here and another lip seal there. So there's no need to put anything on it. All I do sometimes is drop a little bit of oil around it. You don't need sealer. It's such a large surface area, and if the surface area in your housing here is in good condition, there's no need to put anything else on there. So it's important to get this seal straight. Nice straight start. Keep it as straight as you can. And you know you're right home when you're just touching that circlip like we are there now. No need to belt it hard. That's the seal in. Well, look at that. That was a tight thing. We still haven't moved it. We've broken the bearing. I've never had one this tight. Normally you can just pop them in and just bump away and out she comes. But yeah, this went off like a rocket. Lucky we got the safety glasses around, and yeah, made us all jump a little bit. So there you go. You just got to be careful. Normally pressing on a bearing like that would have a hunk of rag around it, but you can't obviously when you're heating. So what we're going to have to do now is split this piece and we'll make a new one. I spoke the other day of the difference in PTO shaft sizes, and I thought I'd just cover that a little more. On this shaft here, this is the inch and 3/8 6 spline. That's the standard PTO shaft now that's been adopted for all tractors up to 80 horsepower. Well, they should be. Some of the Chinese imports aren't. This fella here, to your right, that's the inch and 1/8 6 spline. And that's you can see the difference in the diameter from here, from inch and 1/8 to inch and 3/8. Or inch and 1/8 this side, inch and 3/8 that side. But your standard PTO shaft over the back here, that is inch and 1/8. But if you'd like to upgrade your tractor to the inch and 3/8, the more modern standard, you can buy this shaft with this housing all ready just to slide in the back of the tractor, with an inch and 3/8 6 spline out here, so it fits anything. But the other option that you have, and this is a cheaper option, and look, there's nothing wrong with it. It works okay. And that option is an adapter sleeve. Now, this adapter sleeve can go over there, and then to hold it in place, it gets a roll pin knocked into it. So that takes you up to inch and 3/8 6 spline with the groove here for the buttons to go in. Now, with your inch and 1/8 spline, that will go in there okay, but nowadays there's no holes anymore. There's a little button like I showed earlier, so you can grind this shaft in one spot just to put that little groove in, and then the pins will hook into it. So it looks like this one's been done in a couple of places just to get it up further. I'm not sure why. All that would do was put it in further, you know, drive it up further, which is probably a good thing. It's supported better. There is ones of these without this big collar here, and they just have this bottom piece of spline, but look, they're rubbish. If you have a worn spline like our old spline here that has a bit of a ramp there. What happens is it runs up the ramp. The power of the torque of the shaft runs up the ramp, and the cheap little fellas, they just break. So, but that's just the PTO shafts, the two sizes that you may come into when you're doing your tractor. Well, this is the setup we're using to put it together. I'm holding it in an offset vise, and you'll see the blocks of wood down underneath. So that's supporting the shaft. So when we try and bump onto it, it's supported and it won't spring around. So we'll home in a bit closer and we'll start putting it together. I have a piece of pipe here that can come down over there to bump some of the things on. We'll put a bit of oil on, we'll see if we can do it by bumping it on. The very first one, when we pressed it apart, that was very tight and we popped a bearing, but that shaft was quite worn, so this is a new one, and when I pressed it all off this one, it barely registered on the gauge. So we'll pop it all together and see how we go. So first on is this spacer. Now the spacer has a square edge and a tapered edge. If you can see that clearly. The tapered edge goes to the bearing, so it sits up on the bearing like that. So we'll put a bit of oil in it and around it and run a bit of oil around there. And we'll see if we can get it straight. And look at that. That easy. That's how they should be. That one I had trouble with. I was very surprised at that. This bearing already has grease in it. If you were going to put one in with a seal on one side, you would put the seal to the top here. So my piece of pipe here, make sure it's clean so you don't introduce rubbish into the bearing. That's all the way home. Then we have this fella here. This is our new seal surface that we just made. So we've copied the old one exactly, so let's hope we've got it right. I'm getting about half a thou difference in sizes. So, and the half a thou should probably help us. So that's a good job. And I've just put a heap of oil on the camera here, so I'll shut down and clean the camera. Go again with that Circlip. So there you go, that's on. Now this housing here, this one that we bumped on before, it can now come over the top. But before we do, we'll put a heap of grease in the seal, just to make sure it's got a bit of lube for running. Just come around behind you. And we'll just put a bit of grease inside. Then on the surface where the bearing's to go, we'll just lubricate that just a little bit. And when we bring it down, we'll just bring him I'll go and get an old cap and put on it. Now we'll just start this. Okay, so that's sitting down in. Now just have to, while the seal's halfway in, you can just make sure that it's not caught over, the lip's all good. and appears to be. There you go, that feels like it's gone all the way home. And we're going to put this Circlip in that's got the new type eye in it. It's far easier to deal with. I have to put my Circlip pliers around the right way first. And we just make sure it goes in place properly. There you go. If you look down in there, you can see the gap between the Circlip. She's nice and wide. I actually had to bump the shaft down a little bit more to get him to sit in nicely. So that's about it. Well, that's it done. I still have to address this cup, but this cup is 90 millimetres long, and the cup for this short shaft should be 70 millimetres long. I found one in England and one in Ireland, so we're bringing one in to finish this job, just to get it done properly. And this one here we'll give to someone else to do a job with. But apart from that, that's how you put the PTO seal, bearing and new seal surface into a TE20 PTO shaft. Have a go yourself. We're going to put that kit out and it'll be on our Queensland tractorspares.com.au website, and also in our QLD Tractor Spares on eBay in Australia. So anyway, you need your kit sent somewhere, and give us a yell. We'll see what we can do for you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this or you found it informative, please subscribe to our channel, like the video, share it around. If you have a list of Fergie repairs, feel free to pop it on that list. So thanks for watching, eh? We'll catch you later.